Hello guys, it's Kene once again, and tonight we'll continue our discussion on the basics of Python, right? We looked at installation, Python installation, and installation of the PyCharm IDE. Then we looked at a basic Hello World program. We looked at comments and looked at the use of the print function. We looked at literals and data types. I wasn't able to complete that lesson unit. So we're going to talk about variables and type conversion. So that's what we're going to do in this video. I will discuss Python variables and type conversion. So let's have a look at our scheme of work, which I said we will discuss in a series of lessons. Okay, so I'll share my screen. All right, so guys, we've covered these topics and we're left with this, lesson 6. It doesn't matter that I have used lesson 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The thing is, these are all topics that we need to discuss. And I am not saying that these topics will be discussed in very rigid time. No. So when I started this afternoon, we looked at these 5 topics, lesson 1 to lesson 5. And I'm just going to discuss this, Python variables and type conversion. I'm going to go back to my IDE and I will talk about variables or variable names. What's a variable, guys? A variable is a container, so to say. It is a holder of values. It holds a value. A variable holds a value. Perhaps literal. So that literal is assigned to a variable. And in Python, we don't need keywords to declare our variables, unlike what we have in, say, JavaScript. In JavaScript, I'll use the let keyword to declare a variable, my name, and I'll say Kene. That will be JavaScript. And in PHP, I would use the $, right? But in Python, just the name of the variable, no special characters as key elements, and no special words or sub-words like let, const, and var. So that's how I would name a variable. And I can assign to the variable a string of characters. So this entire string consisting of characters is assigned to this bucket or container that is technically called a variable. And that's my name in this instance. Do we understand? Now, there are some things I need to mention about naming variables. The first is I cannot begin a variable name with a number. So I can't say for, let's say I want to identify or pick the 4th car amongst like a set of or group of cars. I'll now say for 4th car. Now this is going to be a problem. And I could have it as Toyota. Then I can print 4th car, right? So let's try this out. run first lesson, and there's an issue. So an error is raised here, showing that the syntax is invalid. This is not a valid variable name. I can't begin the name of a variable with a number. So this is wrong. I can, however, say car 4. That's the fourth car. So the number can trail the letters in a variable name, but cannot begin that variable name. So I can say car 4 and I run. You see that there are no errors, no error raised. Good. Toyota is printed to the console. Another thing about naming a variable is that we can't use spaces between words or between parts of a variable name. We should have no word and no spaces. So if I had this as variable name, my car, and my car is Toyota, so I need to correct that, and I print my car. Now I can run the program. Again, we see that there's an error. There shouldn't be a space between my and car. Now, if I have a compound word or a complex word, I can simply use an underscore. That's something called snake case, where I use underscores between words that make up the name of a variable. So my car with an underscore, my underscore car. This is a legal variable name. So I can run the program and I see that there are no errors. So this is snake case naming convention. Now, guys, another thing we need to be careful about is not to use a special character as part of the variable. The one special character that we can, however, use is the underscore. So I can't have this as the name of the variable, something like $, $, and then I'm going to print, and then I see there's an error. That's because I've used a special character. So guys, these are things that we need to avoid. Again, I'll take 3 things about the variable name. We shouldn't have spaces in between elements in the variable name. There should be no, I shouldn't begin the variable name with a number, and there should be no space and no special characters. Now, the fourth one, guys, is that we shouldn't use a reserved word. Now, what are reserved words? They are words used by the language itself. So Python uses these words for some functionalities. So if, for example, we use that in the if code, if else code, block of code rather, then we could have range, which is like name of a Python inbuilt function. These are things that we should avoid, right? Now let's see. Now suppose I don't know these reserved words in Python. I can just import a module called keyword. So just import this module. It's a module, something like a file containing codes specific to a particular thing, right? So it's keyword. So there could be classes and methods that are associated with this module, keyword. And I'm going to use this and I'll say my keywords No, there shouldn't be the T there. My keywords without a space. Then I'll simply do this, guys. Keyword. Then these are methods available to us. And I'm going to pick KW list. And that will show us all the reserved words in Python. Okay, so guys, I'm having done this now, I am going to run my program. Okay, so I need to put the print my keyword. Now I should have a KW list. Okay, let's have this. So guys, I need to correct this. So this isn't a method, please, it's a property. And that property, the value of that property will be all the keywords in the language. So I will run my program here and I get this. So these are words that we should not use as variable names, okay? In Python, these are the words. So guys, let's not forget how to get the keyword. So if you are confused, you don't know which word is a keyword, just use the keyword module and get the property KW list, which is like keyword list, KW list as a property. So no parentheses, this will not be right. Then I'll now output that variable that contains the keywords. That's that, guys. So 4 things about naming variables, okay? Then, guys, let's look at something else. We've looked at how to name variables, right? And then we've looked at literal. So the raw data stored in that container, the container being the variable itself. Okay, those are like 2 aspects of what we need: declaring the variable and instantiating the variable, that is giving it a value. And that value could be, for example, could be a string literal or a number literal. All right, guys. So next, I'm going to see if I have a value assigned to a variable, is it possible to get the class? So what family does that variable belong? Now in Python, there are things called objects and classes. We are going to come to that, so I'm not going to go into technical discussion of objects and classes. But there is a family to which things in our code belong, right? So that could be seen as the class. And now that the class is geared towards different things, solving different problems, right? So it's a way of organizing our code using classes. Now we can get the type of data that a variable belongs to by calling a method called type. So if I had my var, my variable, and I had it as a string, Kene, I could check the type of data that Kene is. So it will tell us it's of this data type, and that's the class to which that particular string belongs. So I'm going to say print, then I have type. I use the type method, and because it's a method, we should have parentheses, opening and closing parentheses. and I'm going to supply that variable that holds the value Kene, and that's my var. My var. Right, let's see, guys. So we see that this is string, and that's symbolized with str. That's the string variable. That's the type of variable. What if I had my var as 12? So what's the type? Type with parentheses. Let's see. It's of type int. We get now. What if I had this as 0.8? 0.8. You see that it's of type float. And again, what if I had false with capital letter? False, what type of variable? What type of variable is it? We see that it's of type bool, which is Boolean, true or false value. Do you understand? Okay, guys, speaking of data type, we have the string data type, which is just a collection of characters. So now let me say he is a student. Now this is taken as one unit, characters collected together within a quote, right? Is stored in this variable my var. So guys, what type of variable is this? It is a string variable. Str. Do you understand? So that's a type of data. String is a type of data. Now another type of data we could come across is number. So it could be a number data type. And number could be an integer, a float, or a complex number. I'll very quickly explain each of those terms. Now 12 is an integer. In other words, it's a whole number. It doesn't contain decimal points and having numbers after the decimal point. No, it's just a whole number there. And you can check by simply printing the type. Print type and I'll put my var because I want to check the type of my var. What type of variable is it? So I'll refresh and I see that it's an integer. So that's int. Do you understand? Now, another type of number, another type of data type that is a number is the float. So we're going to see now if I add this as 12.4 and I wanted to get the type, I would find float. So it's of type float. That's the class to which it belongs. It's a floating point number. Then, guys, the third one, which I'm not going to say so much about at this time, is the complex number. So Python has provision for complex number, which is a mix of real numbers and imaginary numbers. So it takes this representation, it has this representation. For example, 12 plus, I can say 4i. Now let's see, we see that 12 is a real number, 4 is a real number, so two real numbers, and now this I part is the imaginary unit. So for example, you take you consider the square root of -1. So that's, for example, an imaginary number. So having the two of them, the sum of the two, this here is an imaginary number. This 12 here is a real number, the real part, and 4i is the imaginary part. Not because 4 is not a real number, 4 is a real number, but because of this imaginary unit. So this entire part of the number is the imaginary type. The imaginary part. So let's see, guys. If I print my var, So I'm going to use complex. And I'll say 12, for example, and I print out, we see that it's of type complex. But in actual representation of that value, it will simply be the sum of, say, a real number and an imaginary number. Okay, so that's that. Those are the three types of numbers in Python. Okay, then of course, guys, we could have the Boolean data type, true or false, yes or no kind of data. So I could have my var, say 3 is greater than 2. It returns the value. 3 is greater than 2. Should that be true or false? What it returns is stored in my var. So I can print to the console my var, and I have class bool. It's a Boolean, and that's actually true. 3 is greater than 2. So that's how you get the type of data that you have. Just call the type method, and the argument for that will be the value you want to check. Okay? All right. So guys, we continue. Now, we've looked at variable names. Now, can I, for example, I had a string and I wanted to make it a number so that I can perform an arithmetic operation on it. So guys, let's see. My var1 is, for example, 556, for example, and my var2 will be, say, 10. So let me now say take both. Take both will be my var1 and plus my var2. So I'm going to say type. No, this time, guys, I don't want the type. I just want the actual result. So what's take both? This my var1 plus my var2, right? And then if I try to print take both, I'll see what it gives us. So that's an error. Now, guys, what does it say? Can only concatenate string, not int to string. In other words, this 56 is a string and my var2 is a number. So I can't concatenate a string and a number. I can't join the two. They both have to be of the same data type. So I need to explicitly convert, say, the string because I want a mathematical plus operation. So there should be a way of converting my var1 to an actual number, an actual integer. So I'll say my var, so I'm going to restore the value in this my var1. So int. Now watch, it is a method. The int method converts a string to, or a float to an integer. So in this case, it's 56, right? So that's my var1. All right, so now let's now try to run the program. You see that this number is of the same data type as this, having used the int method. So this and these are integers. So let's see. So that gives me 66, right? Actual math operation. Do you guys get? However, what if, guys, what if I decide now, instead of making it an integer, I decide to make both of them strings. So I need to convert 10 now to a string, and you can guess what it is. Since 56 in quotes is already a string, I'll just call the str method, str method, and provide the number there. So this is str, right? Which is a method to convert, say, a number to a string. So my var2 is string, 10 as a string. And this is no longer, because I have two strings, this is not a mathematical plus. It's just something to join, a symbol used to join two values. So it will simply just be my var1 56, then I have 10, 5, 6, 1, 0. Now let's see if that's the case. So I've converted 10 to a string, and I'm going to run the program. And so you guys can see that instead of 66, I have 5610. I hope you understand, guys. So there's a difference between a string, there's a difference between a string and a number. Now, that number may appear to be a number, but it's a string, so I can't perform mathematical operations where that number or that digit is enclosed in quotation marks. Then that number is still a string. Do we understand? Now, how do I check? How do I check if? Now, I'm going to use a method that we haven't discussed, but for my purpose here, I'm just going to assume that to some extent, since I've used the function, the print function, I've used the range function, and I've used the str method here, or function, as some will use interchangeably, then I suppose that it will not be a problem now if, say, I use some other functions or methods. Okay. Now let's see. I have 56 as a string. Now I want to check. If it is a numeral value. Checking if it's a numeral value will mean checking if it can be converted, into an integer, a real number, so to say, like an actual number. So I'm going to say is numeric. So using that string, my var1 dot, so it's a string method, is numeric. Then I will store that the value in a variable. So I'll call it result. Now I'm going to print result. So we see that it's a Boolean data type return. That is true. 56 is a string, but it is actually numeric. That is, I can convert it to, say, an integer. So that's why it returns true. What of 5t? And I'm trying to convert now, I'm checking 5t is in numeric, even though there's 5, what about the t? So it cannot be converted to an actual number. And that's why this method here will return false. So let's see. You see that it is false. Okay. So that's it, guys, about type conversion. Can convert one data type to the other. We can even see when we come to, I think, the third lesson, we'll look at other types of data. Sometimes you could have a collection of data stored in one unit, in one variable unit. So that's something that one may call a list, a tuple, a dictionary, or set. But that's not for discussion now. Guys, I hope we have done justice to this particular subtopic, Python variables and type conversion. That is going from string to int, from int to string, from from int to float, from float to int. Let's even see, guys. Suppose I have, say, 10, and I want this to be, I want 10 to be float. I'll just convert that, cast it this way, float 10, right? That's my var2 as float 10. Then I'm going to print to the console. I'll print my var2, my var2. So I have converted an integer to a float. Do you understand? Now let's see what's going to be a floating point number, I suppose. So you see now that there is a point and 0. Okay? Do you understand, guys? And in the same vein, I can also convert a float to an int, an integer, as my var2. And if I run this, I get 10. So it's just like floor rounding down. It just forgets about the decimal point and every digit that follows it. Just give me the whole number, 10. So that's it. I converted a floating point number 10.56 to an integer that gives me 10. I hope you understand, guys, my discussion or lesson today, right? In my next video, we'll move to the next major topic there, which is operators. And in that, we'll discuss all these operators, right? Thank you guys for listening. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.